Something we've never before heard on this show. Boris has been asked to resign. This is brand new. Brand new information.
Yes.
Except that everyone's been asking him to resign over the past few weeks.
Yeah, there's been a lot of it. This one comes from former Attorney General Jeremy Wright, who is the MP for Kenilworth and Southern. And he's written this long statement about why Boris should resign, and I've read it so you don't have to. We should say first, he is a Remainer. He was, as I understand, sacked in Boris Johnson's first cabinet. So
he's got a grudge.
There has been talk of that, Andrew, amongst some media channels. So basically what he does, he goes through, it's a very long, and I'll give you the highlights from it, because I've actually got it printed out. He talked about Sue Gray, and he said there's nothing in the report to make him change his mind that Boris could have genuinely and reasonably believed he didn't break the rules. So he's sticking with that. He's saying there's nothing to suggest that. However, he does say that he was negligent, and that's quite important. He also says that he doesn't think people would be behaving like this if they seriously thought the Prime Minister would have a big problem with it. So he's suggesting that Boris set the culture.
Well, that's also come out of the Sue Gray report, though, let's be fair. I mean, the Sue Gray report did conclude that the tone has to be set by the leader, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, she has levelled the responsibility squarely at Johnson. So it's not unreasonable, is it, for him to do the same?
Right. He says, I find it inconceivable that senior officials and advisers would have tolerated, facilitated and even encouraged the breaking of COVID rules if they believe the Prime Minister would have been horrified and outraged by that. But the interesting part, those are the kind of slightly, to me, the less interesting parts. Where it gets interesting is that his concern, he claims, is that he's worried this will undermine authority in the government in future, and that's why he says he has to go. He says, I fear these events have done real and lasting damage to the reputation, not just of this government, but the institutions and authority of government more generally.
Yes.
And he talks about it's of fundamental importance that when the government basically has to ask people to do things in the greater good again, so-called, that they will do it. Now, the strange thing for me is that I sort of want to have a leader who doesn't have the authority to enforce lockdowns. So people on my side kind of like Boris in the sense that he's lost the moral authority to impose a lockdown. I know it's a strange argument.
But you want a leader who is incapable of leading?
Well, call me an anarchist.
I will call you an anarchist. You're an anarchist.
I want to reduce the power of government in general.
You're a very neat anarchist.
Thank you.
Yeah, you
what
are.
Are you saying?
You're not dressed sufficiently in a way that an anarchist would.
This is how we look now. We've moved on. But,
you can't see what he's wearing under the table.
Oh, really? Maybe I don't want to.
The point is...
Nick, no, but this is an interesting point, that you're saying that effectively as well, this situation and the Sue Gray report has been spun opportunistically by Johnson's enemies. I mean, you've got here in this article Sir Robert Sims, who's effectively also, you know, saying that he's lost all authority, but he's invoking specifically the windfall tax, saying, I don't like this windfall tax. That's what a left-wing government would do. So people are sort of hooking their various grievances about Johnson onto the Sue Gray report. Am I wrong?
No, not wrong at all. I just find it absolutely flabbergasting, really. When the report came out, I loved it. All the pages of it, all the photocopies.
You devoured it.
Oh, I did. I was like sat there, I had my Grazia, my Sue Gray report, my Vogue. I just had a lovely
Jackie Collins.
day.
It's of an ilk, isn't it? So, but tell me this. I mean, I'm confused about this because this article is saying, you know, well, now there have been roughly, 27 MPs calling on him to quit. The Guardian's front cover today is talking about how there are suspicions that they've reached the 54 letters to the 1922 committee that would be required to call a leadership contest. So if that is the case, isn't it the case that Boris Johnson is now on the ropes?
Well, it's exponential growth if it is. If it went from 27 to 54 overnight.
I'm just saying what the Guardian is reporting. They're suggesting that, no, these are just rumours, this is just hearsay.
So is he on the ropes?
Well, we know for sure there's been 22 letters. Right? So, you know, which is quite a lot. You need to get to 54.
Right.
And there are lots of people who are umming and ahhing about whether they submit the letter. To get a single letter isn't a good look for a leader.
For balance, I would say there were letters submitted before. Some people took them back. You know, a few months ago, before the Sue Gray report, some people gave in their letters or talked about it, and some even gave them in and retracted them. I think Andrew Bridgen did that. But I do agree, Andrew. I was talking to Mark the other day on this very show, and he felt, you know, Labour was still unelectable. But I looked at those polls from the red wall, the blue wall, and there does seem to be a real anger there about Partygate. I disagree because I don't disagree, but my anger is always about lockdowns themselves rather than the subsequent hypocrisy of Partygate, while it is annoying. Because I never thought the elites were following any of this rubbish from the start anyway.
You didn't, but you were in a minority. A lot of people are.
But other people are angry about it, and the hypocrisy. And of course, even though Starmer's done it, even though they've all basically been doing it, it's obviously going to fall on this government because they're the ones in charge.